Most of the guidance on imposter syndrome is written by people whose job is the feeling, rather than the work. They will tell you to reframe the doubt, to sit with it, or to remind yourself you've earned your seat. But these techniques are built on a word that comes with a specific set of assumptions, and if the word is an error, every technique built on top of it inherits that mistake. A syndrome is something you have. It is a cluster of symptoms a doctor identifies and names, and from that point on you carry it as a property of yourself. That is what the word means, and it suggests an obvious next move. A defect is something you get removed. But here's the strange part. No doctor diagnoses you with this. It isn't in any medical manual, no psychiatrist writes it on a form, and there is no treatment protocol because there is nothing to treat. When you accept the word syndrome, you start waiting for a cure. You treat the feeling as proof you aren't ready, so you wait for it to lift before you move. Because the feeling is tied to the act of doing something new, it never goes away, which means you never move. What actually exists is a feeling, and the feeling has an ordinary cause. It is a biological report from your nervous system about your odds of survival. This physical response triggers because you are attempting a task you have never previously encountered. Your body is doing the job it was built for, on time, providing accurate data that you are in uncharted territory. We mistake this perfectly timed data for a personal defect. Instead of seeing the adrenaline as a tool for a new challenge, we treat it as something that needs to be extracted before we can begin. The feeling is a real evolutionary response to risk, but the syndrome is a narrative layer. By labeling it as a condition, we turn a temporary biological signal into a permanent reason to stay stationary. If the feeling were a genuine physiological barrier, it would stop everyone at the same rate. You can put two founders in front of the same launch with the same intensity of nerves, and one ships while the other spends a quarter polishing. The input is the same, but the behavior is different. "I'm not ready yet" is a highly effective psychological mechanism. It sounds like self-awareness or humility, which makes it an excuse nobody can argue with. It allows you to spend another 6 months working on yourself, instead of facing the risk of shipping. I saw this mechanism in my own life. I grew up in Beersheba, where my father fixed air conditioners and my mother worked at a grocery store. I was always looking for a way to bridge the gap between where I was and where I wanted to be. Watching that environment daily gave me a very concrete understanding of work, but it didn't protect me from the trap of making excuses when things got difficult. At 14, I saw a phone on a Chinese site that was cheaper than the eBay listings. I copied the listing and sold it for a $40 profit in a few hours. I took action because I didn't yet have the vocabulary to tell myself I wasn't ready. Years later, even with that history, I avoided the stage for a long time. I told myself I was built for screens, not stages. It sounded like maturity, but it was just a way to protect my ego from the possibility of failing at something new. We operate under the false assumption that hitting a milestone will act as the medicine. We think that once we hit a certain number of users or sell the company, the self-doubt will finally lift. My software scaled to over 1 million users. As the dots multiply, you'd expect a corresponding increase in confidence. Instead, the feeling worsened. 1 million people were now depending on my decisions. The scale didn't provide relief. It turned the unknown into a higher stakes problem. Your brain weaponizes achievements. It interprets success as luck or just over-preparation. Each milestone is processed as evidence that you've simply climbed higher, which only means the distance you could fall has increased. This is the trap. The cure feeds the disease. Every rung you climb to get away from the feeling just hands that feeling better material to work with. I felt the same nerves this week that I felt at 14. That realized experience proves there is no condition to overcome, only a recurring reaction to novelty. To manage this, you have to shrink the frame. Instead of trying to map out a 20-step journey, you crop the vision until you are looking only at the next unit of work. Panic spikes when you try to visualize those 19 steps outside the frame, steps you haven't taken and can't accurately predict. When you obscure those variables and focus only on the stable line between A and B, the nervous system loses the all-at-once stimulus that triggers the spike. By reducing the task to an embarrassingly small next step, you deny the anxiety the complexity it needs to hold on to. You aren't forcing yourself to be calm, you are simply removing the noise that makes you frantic. The second move is to find the person who has already done the task you're facing. An advisor who has walked this exact ground can provide the certainty your nervous system is looking for. This is a sign of strength, not a lack of ability. These people provide a bridge from the unknown to the known. By pointing out exactly where the ground gives way, they convert the abstract fear of what if into a manageable checklist of what to avoid, preventing the kind of mistakes that stall a career. The goal isn't to wait until you are fearless. The goal is to recognize that the biological signal of trying something new isn't proof of a defect. It's just a report that you're moving into the new. Accept the report, shrink the frame, and move anyway.